What's up, guys? In today's video we're going to talk about what to look for when your horse is lame. So for anyone that doesn't know, I'm a barefoot trimmer, and I've also been very lucky to work alongside our local lameness vet. He's very graciously spent a lot of time talking to me about lameness and what to look for when your horse is lame, you know, the signs and symptoms of lameness. So I thought, Ernie, my horse, is actually lame right now, go figure. It's always something, at least once or twice a year, you know. So that kind of like what prompted me to want to do this video, because I think it's important to share this information with as many people as possible. Please understand, my videos are not super exciting and edited to, you know, the hilt. It's just more about me communicating and imparting this information onto you guys. So bear with me, it's not going to be exciting. All right, so we're going to start with the hoof. What to look for when your horse is having some kind of lameness issue involving the hoof. So kind of the most obvious thing is you're likely going to see lameness at a walk. So oftentimes when the horse is lame in parts of their leg that are higher up, like the knee or the shoulder, you might not see anything until the horse gets into a trot. But usually if the horse is lame and it's involving the hoof, you're most likely going to see lameness even at the walk. What can go wrong as far as the hoof? The most obvious thing, the most common thing, are abscesses. So you're going to feel heat when you touch the hoof. When you pick it up, you'll most likely see the hair that's around the coronary band might be sticking out a little bit, and that's kind of a sign of inflammation. Some other things you might see are some reddened areas. So you might see reddened areas along the hoof wall, along the coronary band, the horse's heel bulbs, sometimes even in the frog if they're abscessing through the frog. Another thing you can check is grab a pair of hoof testers. So those are the things that look like big clamps. If you put pressure on different areas of the hoof, they'll most likely react positively. They'll have a pain response when you clamp down on the hoof. Let's see, anything else? Laminitis is also an issue that involves the hooves. Laminitis can be a little bit trickier to identify though, because usually it's not going to be found in just one hoof like an abscess. It could involve 2, 3, oftentimes all 4 hooves. So what you're going to see most often if the horse is laminitic is they're going to be walking but very slowly. So you're not going to see any kind of obvious limping, no obvious lameness, other than a very slow moving horse. They'll tend to move a little bit faster, a little more fluidly when you get them into a softer surface like an arena footing. They'll get worse and they'll walk even slower. They'll walk even slower whenever they're on like a concrete floor. So that's a big clue that, you know, laminitis is kind of an issue. Another thing is they're going to be probably positive to hoof testers in all 4 hooves. And also, if you have access to a hoof rasp, if you take a rasp and you rasp along the sole toe area, so where the sole meets the toe along that white line, oftentimes you're going to find reddening in the white line, and what that is blood. And so that's blood coming down from the inflammation and the lamina being separated in the hoof. So that's a big clue that you've got laminitis going on. Another thing with that is you're going to feel heat in all 4 hooves. You will also see that little hair pricking up that I had described with abscessing. You'll most likely see that in all 4 hooves, and that's the hair that kind of butts up against the coronary band. I think that's everything I wanted to cover with the hoof. If I forget anything in any part of the leg, I'll make a part 2, because I'm just kind of going off the cuff here, so if I forget something, forgive me. Let's see. More serious things like coffin bone fractures. I mean, you're gonna see a very severe lameness at the walk. You know, if that's going on too, that's something that obviously needs to be diagnosed with an X-ray though. I think that's. Oh, you know, one more thing. So a lot of people don't realize this, but poor trimming, poor shoeing can also cause your horse to go lame. So one thing that I've seen personally, extremely long bars are very painful to horses. So if you pick up your horse's hoof and the bars, which are the little like slivers of like, they look like hoof wall that kind of intersect and meet up about halfway down the frog, if those are sticking so far up that they're actually above the outer rim of the hoof wall, that is so painful for the horse. It feels like they're walking on rocks. So that's a trimming issue. Another thing is a frog that's overly pronounced. So if the frog, like I just described the bars, is sticking up above the height of the outer rim of the hoof wall, again, painful, that needs to be addressed, that's a trimming issue. That might not be something, you know, that you're gonna see, that you're not gonna be able to diagnose that with really hoof testers. You're probably not gonna feel heat. So that could be a little bit confusing for people because it's not, you might say, oh, my horse is, you know, really sore in that one foot, oh, it must be an abscess. If you don't feel heat, if they're not reactive to hoof testers, I would look at the foot and assess, okay, is this a trimming issue? Okay, I think that's all I wanted to cover with the hoof. Moving up the leg, we get to the fetlock joint. If you're gonna have issues there, oh, you know what, let's back it back down. We gotta talk about ring bone. So high ring bone, low ring bone, what you're gonna see with that. Low ring bone is harder to diagnose. That's definitely gonna be a lameness at the walk. You're probably not gonna feel a whole lot of heat with that. That's something that it's gonna be process of elimination, okay. We've decided, okay, it's none of this. We should probably call the vet and get an x-ray to check if it's ring bone. You're gonna see this in older horses, not likely any horse under the age of 10. I'm sure there's exceptions to that, but it's usually gonna be in your seniors, you know, who've had a somewhat athletic career, then you may see ring bone. High ring bone in the more advanced stages can become visually obvious to you. So you'll see a pronounced bulge in the front of the pastern bone. So it kind of typically will line up right with, it's kind of right above where the coronary band meets the front of the hoof wall. So you'll see this bulge, like, okay, let's say my glove is the hoof wall, this is the coronary band, you might see a bulge about right here. Over time, it can actually distort the hoof wall. So the hoof wall will start to grow almost in this like pitched tent-like kind of shape. So that's a big clue that you've got high ring bone going on. Again, you're probably not gonna feel heat. Hoof is gonna be negative to hoof testers, things like that. But you're gonna start to see distortion in the shape of the hoof and you'll see that pronounced bone growth in the front. Okay, now we can move up to the pastern. I'm sorry, the fetlock joint. The fetlock, issues in that are typically gonna be arthritic issues. Again, you're gonna see this in older horses, and the more obvious sign with that is you're gonna see heat. And also a big clue is when you flex the fetlock joint. So it's a flexion test I'm describing. If you don't know what that is, please look it up. When you flex the fetlock and then you trot the horse off, they will become more lame. So much more obviously lame. That's a big clue that obviously the fetlock is affected. X-rays are what you're gonna need to kind of diagnose any sort of arthritic changes in your horse. If we kind of start to move up the leg a little bit, some issues that can happen with the tendons in the back of the leg. Bowed tendons obviously are a somewhat common issue. Visually, they're fairly easy to diagnose because you're going to see a swelling in the back of the leg. It'll almost kind of typically take on like a teardrop shape. So we get swelling tends to fall down the leg. So even if, you know, maybe the tendon is affected higher up, typically you'll still see swelling a little bit lower, and heat. So that's a big clue, swelling and heat along that tendon, and you'll know you have a bowed tendon. The most common thing I see personally as a trimmer as to why we get bowed tendons are long toes. So really, really try to be adamant with your hoof care professional that we keep the toes nice and short. Horses should not have long toes. Bottom line, it increases the leverage in all the joints of the leg, stresses them much more than what they're supposed to be, and will almost always lead to arthritic changes and stress tendons and stress ligaments down the road if it's not addressed. So keep those toes short, and that shouldn't happen Once we move up the leg, knee lameness. Again, you're going to see swelling, you're going to see heat, and typically on knee issues, I say typically, there's always exceptions. It's not always obvious at the walk. Very obvious at the trot though. So everything that I've mentioned thus far up to when we get to the knee, you will likely still see when the horse is walking. When it's a knee issue, typically you won't see anything until the horse is trotting. The most common thing that you typically see in knee issues are arthritis, obviously. It's a highly mobile joint. It takes a lot of stress, so you could, technically see arthritic changes in a horse that's younger than 10 if they've had a very athletic career, like barrel racers and jumpers and things like that. So you're going to see swelling, you're going to feel heat. You might see things like wind puffs, little balls of swelling. Some people will call them like pop knees. Which that's technically another issue, but it looks like a pop knee. A pop knee is like when the horse bangs their knee on something and you'll get like a little ball of swelling on the front of it. But when the horse has arthritis, you can often see something similar. So you'll see that little ball right in the front. It's kind of like a squishy fluid-filled ball is what you'll feel. Diagnosing knee lameness is going to be done with a flexion test. So bending the knee up to its fully flexed state, holding for about 60 seconds, and then asking the horse to trot off. If the horse is significantly more lame when you do that, then you have a knee issue. And okay, anything else I want to cover with the knee? Obviously, you can still strain tendons. I mentioned the pop knee issue. Bones could be broken, obviously, but if you had a broken bone, you'd probably see that in the walk. All right, moving further up the leg into the radius. Again, anything that's going on in that issue in that bone, you're going to see swelling. The higher up you go in the leg, you will see things at the walk. Like once you move up into the horse's shoulder, you may see lameness at the walk, just because during the walk, the horses tend to stretch and really move their shoulders quite a bit. So yeah, whenever things present themselves at the walk, usually it's the hoof or the shoulder. If the horse is lame at a trot, and we're discussing the front legs, it's usually the knee. So just this little tip for you. Shoulder issues, typically what you're going to see are from trauma. So horse kicks, or the horse falls, or strains a tendon or strains a muscle, something like that. That's typically what you're going to see there. Things to look for: you may find swelling and things like that. You may find a hoof print on your horse's shoulder if they were kicked, but there's a very good chance that you might not. So really, the clue is when you think that it's something higher up, it's almost a process of elimination. Like, okay, it wasn't the foot, it wasn't his tendons, it's not his knee, it's not the upper arm. It's okay, now it's got to be the shoulder. Another thing to look for is, if you think it's your shoulder, his shoulder, when the horse is lunging and the affected leg is on the inside of the circle and you think it's a shoulder issue, look for very unnatural muscle flexing in that shoulder area. So with Ernie right now, he has a strained pectoral muscle. So when he's bearing weight and he's walking around as I lunge him, which I want to preface this by saying I'm only lunging him every few days to check and see if he's improving. I'm not like actively exercising him right now, just want to clarify. So when he is walking, it's his right pectoral, by the way. So when he's walking to the right, as I'm lunging him, I'm seeing all of the muscles on the outside of his shoulder flex much more than they normally would, and that's a protective mechanism. So if something hurts, so I'm going to flex the surrounding muscle tissue to try to protect that. So that's something you can definitely look for if you have a shoulder issue. So I think that's pretty much everything well, we'll say the most common things to look for lameness wise in the front legs. And actually, I think, well, I'm almost at 15 minutes. Actually, I'm right at 15 minutes now. I think we should stop here, and I'm gonna make a part 2, and then we'll discuss the hind legs, just so this isn't like an insanely long video. But I hope that was helpful, and comment below, let me know if you think I forgot anything. Again, if I did, I'll make a part 2. This is all just me rambling, so there's a very good chance I forgot something. But again, hope that helped you guys, and I'll see you in part 2. Peace.